Okay. So now with the second video, we're going to talk about the household system. So the household system is basically just like what you cook with and what you bake with. So cups, pints, tablespoons, teaspoons, just again, what's in your everyday household. So what's in your kitchen, basically, you can think of. And within that system, we do go back to the decimal system. So out of all the different types of units that we talk about, the apothecary system is the only system that does not use a decimal based system. So remember, we use fractions or a mix of whole number or mixed numbers. So with that being said, we do go back to decimals in this case. So if we're writing any sort of abbreviations or anything like that, we will go back to decimals. So here again, you can see the different conversions, the different relationships amongst different measurements. And here are the abbreviations. So again, you will need to know these. Again, certain information like this I will give you when it steps out of the metric system. Because again, um, I don't feel a need for you guys to memorize all of this. It's kind of just a waste of memory. But this information here, you will have to know the abbreviation. So make sure you're familiarized with it. Okay, so write the quantity with appropriate abbreviation. So 2 drops. So first things first, we have a whole number 2, not a problem. But how do we abbreviate drops? Let's go back and look. Here we can see drops. It could either be GT or if it's plural, GTTT. So here we do have a plural amount, so GTT. There's our answer. And then 3 1/2 tablespoons. So remember, in the apothecary system, we saw that 1/2 has to be abbreviated as a fraction, 1/2. But we're going back to the decimal system. So 3 1/2, how would we represent that? What's a number represented as a half? So that means 3.5, 3.50 we can have. And then how do we abbreviate tablespoon? Well, tablespoon is abbreviated as a few different ways, but I know the way I'm kind of used to it is just TBS. But again, any way that you know that are on this chart, so again, some of them have multiple options, I'm okay with that, as long as they fall within the realm of the textbook and within what we're doing. So those are our answers. And now let's go to conversions. So I am going to talk a different way on how to do conversions, and this is a universal system. I'm pretty sure this system is called, I remember I learned it in chemistry myself, stoichiometry. If you want to look at more videos, I don't know if I spelled that correctly. Stoichiometry. I think I spelled that correctly. So it's going to be a little bit different. So write the equivalent household measurement. So we're going to go back to conversion. And if you do convert in a different way, I do ask that you clarify it with me first, just so I can see where your head's at. So with stoichiometry, this new method that we're talking about, which again is the method that you talk about in the textbook, and again, it's quite a universal system. So again, as I mentioned, I learned it in my chemistry class within college and within high school. So the way we do this system is basically the multiplication of fractions. And it sounds super confusing, but I promise it's not too bad when you kind of go through a few examples. So what you do is you start with what's given. So notice for part A, we want to know 4 tablespoons is equivalent to how much in ounces as an equivalent measurement. So we start with what's given. So 4 tablespoons. And we are going to represent these as fractions. So remember, with a whole number, the way we represent a fraction is over 1. And then we're going to multiply it by now the blanking on the name, the equivalent measurement. So the relationship that we have, I can't think of the exact terminology for this right now, my brain's slipping, but the relationship that is shared between ounces and tablespoons. And again, this is something that I will give to you. So here we can see that in every 1 ounce, we have 2 tablespoons. So remember, we start with what's given. So whatever's given is always going to be the numerator over 1. So whatever the fraction is at that time. So now we multiply by the equivalent ratio. So we want to get rid of tablespoons. So remember when it comes to a fraction, so let's say we have 4/4. This simplifies into a form of 1 because 4 divided by 4 is 1. 4 goes into 4 exactly 1 time. Same thing if we have x over x. That divides out to just equal 1. So if we are multiplying fractions, I want to be able to cross out this tablespoon. I want it gone. I want to be rid of tablespoon and get in the world of ounces. Well, if I want this to simplify with something, that means it's going to have to be in the numerator. So whatever you want to get, or I'm sorry, in the denominator. So whatever you want to get rid of, it has to cancel out eventually. So that means we're going to put tablespoons here. Well, we know directly that for every 1 ounce, there are 2 tablespoons. So we can then go straight into ounces since there is an equivalent measure amongst them. And we know that 1 ounce is equivalent to 2 tablespoons. So here we have a ratio set up. And notice now that this cancels out. Tablespoon divided by tablespoon, that goes away. And notice you're left with ounces. And now these are just fractions that we're multiplying. So remember when we multiply fractions, we multiply the numerators with the denominators. Or I'm sorry, the numerators with the numerators and the denominators with the denominators. So here, what's left is we have 4 times 1, which is 4, and we still have ounces left, so there's ounces. And then in the denominator, we have 1 times 2. So we have left with 2, and this 4/2 simplifies to 2 ounces. So that is our final answer. Let's do another example. So here we have 32 ounces, and we want to know what is the equivalent measure in pounds. So remember, we always start with what's given in the first fraction. So 32 ounces over 1 for our first fraction. And then we multiply it by the equivalent measure if we can. So in this case, in the chart that we had, it was stated that every 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces. So that's what will go in the second fraction because again, we want to be able to multiply out ounces and enter the world of pounds since that's the desired unit. So if we want ounces gone, remember, think of how fractions work. We want it to cancel out. So that means that ounces has to go on the bottom. Same thing if this was pounds, then we would want pounds on the bottom because again, we want them to cancel out. Hey. Sorry, my dog is picking at something. Well, from ounces, where do we want to go? The desired unit is pounds, and I know a relationship between ounces and pounds, and that is right here. That's what's given. And we know that for every 1 pound, there are 16 ounces. This is an equivalent ratio here. They're equal to one another. So now we can see, well, I got rid of ounces because the fraction cancels it out. And then I can see what's left. I have 32 times 1, which is 32 pounds. Remember, I still have the pounds there, which is what I want because that's the unit that I want. And then I have 16 times 1 in the denominator, which is just 16. And then I can actually perform, Hugo. I can perform the division. 32 divided by 16 is just 2 pounds. And these examples are pretty straightforward. However, not all of them will be straightforward. So that is why I emphasize if you are familiar with another method to please clarify with me first. And we got one more video left.